Hello everyone. Today, we will talk social responsibility and ethics in strategic management. The question of whether strategic decision makers should be responsible only to shareholders or have broader responsibilities encompasses the concept of social responsibility. This perspective argues that private corporations hold obligations to society that extend beyond simply generating profits. Strategic decisions can have far-reaching effects, influencing not only the corporation itself, but also its various stakeholders. For instance, decisions such as closing plants or discontinuing product lines impact not just the company's workforce, but also the local communities and customers who depend on those products. These scenarios highlight the need for corporations to consider the implications of their actions on a wider scale, prompting a re-evaluation of their missions, objectives, and strategies. Managers face the challenge of balancing conflicting interests when making strategic decisions. To formulate effective and ethical strategic plans, they must navigate these complexities and integrate social responsibilities into their corporate strategies. This approach not only enhances the corporation's reputation, but also contributes to the overall well-being of society. The responsibilities of a business firm can vary widely, and two prominent perspectives on this issue are presented by Milton Friedman and Archie Carroll. Friedman's traditional view of business responsibility. Milton Friedman advocates for a traditional view of business responsibility, emphasizing a return to a laissez-faire economy with minimal government intervention. He argues against the concept of social responsibility, asserting that when business leaders engage in actions like reducing prices to combat inflation or investing in pollution reduction, they are diverting shareholder funds for broader social interests. According to Friedman, even with shareholder approval, such actions can detract from the firm's primary goal of profit maximization. Friedman believes that these social responsibilities can hinder a company's efficiency. Increased expenditures for social initiatives may lead to higher prices or postponed investments in innovation, ultimately harming the business and its long-term viability. He famously stated that the only social responsibility of business is to use its resources to increase profits, provided it operates within the rules of fair competition. He criticized companies like General Mills for misusing corporate assets by investing in social services instead of focusing on shareholder wealth, arguing that such decisions should be left to shareholders rather than management. Carroll's 4 responsibilities of business. Carroll's framework presents a broader perspective on corporate social responsibility (CSR) compared to Friedman's profit-centric view. While Friedman argues that profit maximization is the primary obligation of business, Carroll identifies 4 key responsibilities that managers must consider: economic, legal, ethical, and discretionary. Economic responsibilities. The primary duty of a business is to produce goods and services that provide value to society, enabling the firm to repay its creditors and shareholders. This economic foundation is essential for business survival and growth. Legal responsibilities. Businesses are required to operate within the laws established by governments. This includes adhering to regulations on hiring practices and ensuring non-discrimination based on race, gender, or religion. Ethical responsibilities. Beyond legal obligations, businesses are expected to act according to societal norms and values. For example, while not legally required, ethically responsible firms engage with employees and communities during layoffs, reflecting prevailing ethical standards. Discretionary responsibilities. These are voluntary actions that a corporation may undertake, such as charitable contributions and community support initiatives. While not expected by society, fulfilling these responsibilities can enhance a firm's reputation. Carroll emphasizes that businesses must first meet their economic and legal responsibilities before addressing ethical and discretionary obligations. As societal values evolve, actions that are currently discretionary may become ethical responsibilities. For example, the increasing focus on healthy food choices reflects a shifting societal expectation for food companies. Furthermore, Carroll suggests that neglecting ethical or discretionary responsibilities could lead to increased government regulation, which may hinder profitability. Recent surveys indicate a growing consensus among business executives that balancing profit generation with social contributions is vital, reflecting a shift away from Friedman's strict profit maximization stance. Empirical research increasingly supports the idea that socially responsible actions can positively impact financial performance. Companies known for their social responsibility often enjoy enhanced reputations and stakeholder goodwill, which can translate into competitive advantages. Ultimately, integrating social and economic goals can foster long-term success and sustainability for businesses. Social capital refers to the goodwill and trust built with key stakeholders, which can be leveraged for competitive advantage. It plays a crucial role in several ways. Community engagement. Strong social capital helps businesses open doors in local communities. Positive relationships with community members can lead to support for initiatives and facilitate smoother operations. Enhanced reputation. A firm with strong social capital enjoys a better reputation among consumers. This goodwill can foster loyalty, as customers are more likely to support companies they perceive as socially responsible. Competitive advantage. By cultivating social capital, businesses can differentiate themselves in the marketplace. A positive reputation and strong community ties can lead to increased customer loyalty, attracting socially conscious consumers and enhancing overall business performance. Okay, now we have benefits of being socially responsible. A study of 70 ecological initiatives by 43 companies revealed that the average payback period for these initiatives was just 18 months, highlighting the financial viability of social responsibility. Here are several key benefits associated with being socially responsible. Premium pricing and brand loyalty. Companies that demonstrate environmental concerns can charge premium prices and cultivate strong brand loyalty. For instance, Ben & Jerry's ice cream is known for its commitment to social and environmental issues, which enhances its appeal. Trustworthy relationships. A strong reputation for social responsibility fosters trustworthiness, enabling companies to build enduring relationships with suppliers and distributors. This can reduce the need for extensive contract enforcement, saving time and resources. Attracting talent. Businesses that prioritize social responsibility can attract top talent. Companies like Procter & Gamble and Starbucks are seen as desirable employers, drawing employees who value ethical practices. Global acceptance. Socially responsible firms are often more welcomed in foreign markets. For example, Levi Strauss is recognized for its ethical practices, facilitating smoother entry into new regions. Support from public officials. Companies with strong social reputations can leverage goodwill from public officials during challenging times, gaining support that can be crucial for navigating difficulties. Investment appeal. Socially responsible companies are increasingly attractive to investors. Mutual funds focused on socially responsible investments have seen significant growth, doubling in size from 1995 to 2007, and often outperforming the S&P 500, indicating a favorable view of such firms as long-term investments. These benefits illustrate how social responsibility can lead to both immediate financial gains and long-term strategic advantages for businesses. Sustainability. More than environmental. Sustainability encompasses more than just ecological concerns. It also includes economic and social dimensions. Crane and Matten argue that addressing the sustainability of the natural environment often requires considering the social and economic contexts of communities involved. For instance, while environmentalists may oppose road building projects due to their impact on wildlife, proponents highlight benefits such as reduced traffic congestion and job creation for local communities. To reflect this broader understanding, Dow Jones and Company has developed a sustainability index that evaluates companies based on environmental, economic, and social factors. This comprehensive approach underscores the interconnectedness of sustainability issues. The expanded concept of sustainability aligns closely with Carroll's framework of business responsibilities. For a corporation to be sustainable and achieve long-term success, it must fulfill its economic, legal, ethical, and discretionary responsibilities. This holistic perspective on sustainability involves navigating various issues and trade-offs, ultimately leading to a deeper examination of corporate stakeholders and their interests. Corporate stakeholders. The idea that businesses must be socially responsible raises the question of responsibility to whom. Corporations operate within a complex environment that includes various stakeholders, groups that are affected by or can affect the firm's objectives. This leads to the debate about whether companies should prioritize the interests of some stakeholders over others. A Harris poll found that 95% of the U.S. public believes corporations owe responsibilities to their workers and communities, suggesting that businesses should sometimes sacrifice profits for the betterment of these groups. Concerns have been raised about business executives prioritizing profits and personal compensation over product safety and quality. Trust in business leaders has declined, with only 28% of the public believing they act ethically most of the time, down from 36% in 2002. Conflicts often arise between stakeholder interests. For example, using recycled materials may benefit environmental groups, but negatively impact shareholder dividends. Similarly, Maytag's decision to move production to Mexico pleased shareholders due to lower costs, but resulted in job losses that upset local communities. To navigate these conflicts, corporations may need to develop an enterprise strategy that articulates their ethical commitments to stakeholders. This involves clearly stating key ethical values, understanding the societal context, and conducting stakeholder analysis to identify the concerns and capabilities of each group. Stakeholder analysis involves identifying and evaluating corporate stakeholders through a three-step process. Identifying primary stakeholders. The first step is to recognize primary stakeholders, those with a direct connection to the corporation and significant bargaining power to influence its activities. These typically include customers, employees, suppliers, shareholders, and creditors. Understanding the needs of these groups can be complex. For example, Intel initially resisted replacing defective Pentium chips, believing they only owed responsibility to the computer manufacturers. However, they eventually recognized their obligation to end users, leading to a costly recall. Identifying secondary stakeholders. The second step involves identifying secondary stakeholders who have an indirect stake in the corporation. This group often includes NGOs, activists, local communities, trade associations, competitors, and governments. Relationships with secondary stakeholders are generally not formalized, leading to misunderstandings. While these stakeholders may not directly impact short-term profitability, their influence can significantly affect a corporation's reputation and long-term success. Estimating effects of strategic decisions. The final step is to assess how specific strategic decisions will impact each stakeholder group. While primary stakeholders often drive economic decision-making, secondary stakeholders should not be overlooked. Understanding their needs and potential losses or gains is essential for fulfilling ethical and discretionary responsibilities. Failing to consider these factors can result in reputational damage and long-term consequences for the business. Stakeholder input. After identifying the impacts on stakeholders, managers should consider inviting stakeholder input into discussions about strategic alternatives. Engaging stakeholders in the decision-making process can lead to greater acceptance and support for the final decision. For instance, when Maytag decided to close its Galesburg, Illinois, refrigeration plant, management informed the community 3 years in advance, allowing employees and townspeople to adjust, despite the negative attention. However, in any organization, it's likely that some stakeholder groups will remain dissatisfied, even when efforts are made to be socially responsible. Companies may not always be aware of certain stakeholder interests. A notable example is Ford Motor Company's advertising strategy in 2005, which aimed at gay and lesbian readers. The backlash from the American Family Association AFA led Ford to withdraw its ads, resulting in further protests from LGBTQ+ groups. This situation illustrates the complexities of stakeholder relations. Before making strategic decisions, managers must evaluate how each alternative will impact various stakeholders. A decision that appears profitable at first glance may lead to adverse consequences. Johnson & Johnson is highlighted as an example of a company that prioritizes the needs of both primary and secondary stakeholders in its strategic decision-making process. Some reasons for unethical behavior. Many business people are perceived as acting unethically for various reasons, often without awareness of their questionable actions. Here are some key factors contributing to this perception. Lack of universal standards. There is no global standard for ethical conduct in business, leading to significant variations in cultural norms and practices. For example, what constitutes a bribe in one country may be viewed as standard business practice in another. Countries with relationship-based governance systems tend to be less transparent, resulting in higher corruption levels compared to rule-based systems. Value differences. There can be a disconnect between the values of business people and those of key stakeholders. Many business people prioritize profit maximization, while stakeholders may emphasize social issues like diversity and community safety. Studies show that executives in the US and the UK prioritize economic and political values over social and religious ones, contrasting with the values of other groups, such as religious leaders. Divergent perspectives on products. Industries like tobacco and alcohol often face ethical scrutiny for promoting potentially harmful products. While some view this advertising as unethical, Industry representatives argue for consumer choice in a free market. This clash of values complicates mutual understanding. Pressure to bend rules. A survey revealed that 70% of executives reported bending rules to meet objectives, citing reasons like organizational performance requirements 74%, ambiguous or outdated rules 70%, and peer pressure 47%. The financial community's focus on short-term earnings exacerbates this issue, pressuring executives to manipulate earnings reports to meet expectations. Gradual ethical erosion. Former Enron Vice President Sharon Watkins used the frogs in boiling water analogy to illustrate how ethical standards can erode gradually. As unethical practices become normalized, individuals may fail to recognize their harmful nature until it's too late. Moral relativism is the belief that morality is not absolute but relative to personal, social, or cultural standards. It posits that there is no definitive method for determining whether one moral decision is better than another. This concept can be used by individuals to justify seemingly unethical behavior through 4 types of moral relativism. Naive relativism. This perspective holds that moral decisions are deeply personal, allowing individuals to interpret situations based on their own values. It often serves as an excuse for inaction regarding unethical behavior observed in others. Role relativism. Adherents believe that social roles impose certain obligations, leading managers to prioritize their professional responsibilities over personal beliefs. This mindset can lead to justifying unethical actions by claiming they are necessary for fulfilling job duties, similar to the just following orders defense used by Nazi war criminals. Social group relativism. This viewpoint argues that morality is defined by the norms of one's peer group. Actions are deemed legitimate if they are common practice within that group, which can lead to misguided beliefs about what is acceptable behavior in an industry. Cultural relativism. This belief emphasizes understanding and accepting the practices of different cultures without judgment. It suggests that individuals should adhere to local customs. When in Rome, do as the Romans do. But it can also lead to justifying unethical actions as long as they are not illegal. Some business individuals may be perceived as unethical due to a poorly developed personal sense of ethics. Ethical behavior is shaped by various factors, including a person's level of moral development, personality traits, and situational influences such as the work environment and organizational culture. Kohlberg's theory of moral development identifies 3 distinct levels. The pre-conventional level is marked by self-centeredness, where individuals assess actions based on personal gain and the avoidance of punishment. In contrast, the conventional level involves adherence to societal laws and norms, with behaviors justified by external codes of conduct. Finally, the principled level reflects a commitment to an internal moral code, where individuals prioritize universal values over societal expectations. Most people function at the conventional level, with fewer than 20% of U.S. adults reaching the principled level. Research supports Kohlberg's framework, revealing that individuals with higher cognitive moral development, lower Machiavellian traits, and greater job satisfaction are less likely to make unethical decisions. To promote ethical behavior in business, it is essential to recognize that if business leaders fail to act ethically, governments will likely impose regulations that can increase operational costs. Therefore, managers have a vested interest in making ethical decisions. One effective approach is to develop and implement codes of ethics, along with clear guidelines for ethical behavior. These codes specify organizational expectations for employee conduct and help individuals recognize the ethical implications of their decisions. Currently, more than half of U.S. corporations utilize such codes, which can be especially beneficial for those operating at Kohlberg's conventional level of moral development. Despite the prevalence of codes of ethics, studies show that managers often bypass these guidelines when faced with ethical dilemmas, opting instead to address issues independently. To encourage adherence to ethical standards, management should not only create comprehensive codes of ethics but also integrate them into training programs, performance appraisals, and organizational policies. Communicating key values through mission statements can further reinforce ethical behavior. A 2004 survey by the Business Roundtable Institute for Corporate Ethics indicated that 74% of CEOs had recently made changes to how their companies manage ethics, including enhanced reporting systems and improved compliance procedures. Additionally, U.S. corporations have sought to protect whistleblowers, individuals who report unethical or illegal actions. The U.S. False Claims Act rewards whistleblowers with a percentage of recovered damages, while the Sarbanes-Oxley Act prohibits retaliation against those who report wrongdoing. However, a significant portion of whistleblowers still experiences negative repercussions. Companies with strong ethical cultures and enforced codes of conduct generally see fewer unethical choices available to employees, thereby reducing temptation. Research indicates that organizations with long-standing ethics programs suffer less reputational damage. Management should also enforce ethical standards among suppliers, especially when outsourcing. For example, Gap International has established stringent codes of conduct for its suppliers, emphasizing compliance with child labor laws and providing educational opportunities for underage workers. However, many companies lack the necessary enforcement mechanisms to ensure compliance, as revealed by surveys showing that a significant number of firms with codes of conduct do not require active adherence from suppliers. Moreover, having a code of ethics for suppliers does not guarantee protection against reputational harm if suppliers engage in unethical practices, as some may successfully conceal abuses. Instances of Chinese factories maintaining deceptive records to evade audits highlight the challenges of ensuring ethical behavior across global supply chains. Guidelines for ethical behavior. Ethics refers to the accepted standards of behavior within a profession, while morality pertains to personal conduct based on religious or philosophical beliefs. Laws are formal codes that regulate behavior, but may not always align with ethical or moral standards. To establish a comprehensive ethical framework for a specific field, three primary approaches to ethical behavior can be considered. Utilitarian approach. This approach evaluates actions based on their consequences, advocating for behaviors that maximize societal benefits and minimize harm. However, it can be challenging to accurately assess all potential benefits and costs, leading to a focus on the most powerful or urgent stakeholders while neglecting others. Individual rights approach. This perspective emphasizes that individuals possess fundamental rights that must be respected in decision-making. Actions that infringe upon these rights should be avoided. A challenge with this approach lies in the varying interpretations of what constitutes fundamental rights, which can lead to selfish behavior when individuals assert personal desires as rights. Justice approach. This approach advocates for fairness and impartiality in distributing costs and benefits among individuals and groups. It incorporates principles of distributive justice, ensuring that similar individuals are treated equitably, and includes concepts of retributive and compensatory justice. Conflicts can arise, such as those seen in affirmative action debates, highlighting the tension between different forms of justice. Ethical problem-solving framework. Kavanaugh suggests a method for addressing ethical dilemmas by posing 3 critical questions regarding any action or decision. Utility. Does the action optimize the satisfactions of all stakeholders? Rights. Does it respect the rights of the individuals involved? Justice. Is it consistent with the principles of justice? For instance, consider the ethics of padding an expense account. Analyzing it through the utility criterion reveals that such an action increases company costs, thereby failing to optimize benefits for shareholders and customers. From the rights perspective, padding an expense account violates the principle that one has no rightful claim to that money. Regarding justice, expense accounts are intended to cover legitimate job-related expenses, not to enrich an individual beyond ordinary compensation. An alternative approach to resolving ethical dilemmas is grounded in the philosophy of Immanuel Kant, who offers 2 categorical imperatives. An action is ethical only if the individual would be willing for everyone in a similar situation to take the same action. This aligns with the golden rule: treat others as you would like to be treated. In the case of expense account padding, it would be unethical because no manager would condone such behavior if it were universally practiced. Individuals should never treat others merely as means to an end. They must be treated as ends in themselves. This principle asserts that actions are morally wrong if they exploit others for personal gain, thus restricting their rights or opportunities.
Thank you for watching. If you liked this video, please like and subscribe to channel.